So thank you for joining us for another episode of Random Podcast Experiment with George and my good friend here today, Oliver Asis. Oliver, what's happening, dude?
Nothing much, just in town visiting Portland.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it's good.
Awesome. So we're doing a couple different experiments today. The first experiment being just having a conversation for the sake of having a conversation because an amazing human being is here. And second experiment is going to be the fact that I'm going to be live switching the cameras with a magical mystery switcher, which I'm not going to talk about how it's done unless it works well. I should have switched the camera right now, and you would probably see Mr. Oliver Asis' lovely face, big and bold in front of you.
Yeah.
Oliver,
Yeah.
first off, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you taking the time to stop by and visit myself and Lisa while you're here in town from San Diego.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I told you earlier, no trip to Portland is complete without seeing the both of you guys. So
Awesome.
It's always on my to-do list when I'm here.
We sincerely appreciate your friendship and always you always bring a smile to our face whenever we get a chance to spend some face-to-face time.
Thanks.
Oliver, for our friends and any random people who are watching today,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, we're going to go with that question. All right.
Yeah.
So, I live in San Diego, California. So I guess the short elevator speech is I'm a civil engineer for the state. So I design freeways for a living. And then when I'm not doing that, I am a wedding and landscape photographer. So that is my side hustle. So, and I happen to be in a very fortunate position of getting the dream job. Like, I struck the career lottery twice, got two of the dream jobs I've ever wanted, and just trying to live life the best I can, taking it day by day and just enjoying it. So
Amazing.
yeah.
I couldn't agree more when you said that you struck the dream job lottery twice based on all the conversations we've had around what it is that you love about what you do during the day and away from the state of California engineering career that you have.
Yeah.
Oliver, I'm going to check on one thing
Yeah,
real
absolutely.
quick just to make sure that we're still streaming live and the switch is going as planned.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just step off for just like 10 seconds.
Yeah. So this live stream podcast is brought to you by I should definitely try my NPR. Like, this break was brought to you by water. Feeling hydrated? Wanna make sure you don't feel dehydrated? Drink water. Drink 8 glasses a day. It's good for you and your health.
Would it be okay for you to see yourself or no? Nah.
Nah, let's not. I'll just make it more self-conscious of like, oh man, sit up straight.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So I just did a little switcheroo, made sure everything was working okay,
Nice.
and it is. So that's great. And for anybody who can see, we've got a little bit of espresso here. I'm just gonna pour myself a small itty bitty glass.
Nice.
Oliver, would you care for any?
I love coffee.
Excellent.
It's one of my favorite beverages. And
What are these? This is I don't know. It's an aluminum espresso maker. I think you can see on camera. Kind of saw this style in Italy when we did a trip last year.
Nice.
Yeah. Cheers. Might be a little warm.
Cheers. Yeah, let's make sure I don't burn myself.
Excellent. It's a little toasty in here too. Might open the window in a little bit. But
Good.
so Mr. Oliver Asis, you and I have known each other for well over 5 years now, probably closer to 6 since
Yeah.
WDS 2013.
Yeah, but it was before that too.
Yeah, through a film production company that I worked at called
Yep.
Still Motion.
Yep. And it was, I believe, with a tour stop in San Diego that we became friends.
Yeah, so I think it was in the spring of 2013. The production company that I worked for at the time, we were touring around North America, teaching a workshop for filmmakers and aspiring filmmakers about specifically like the storytelling process that the company Still Motion had kind of pioneered in a way. It was at that time. I don't know if it was called Muse. It was called Muse already, right?
No, I don't think it was called Muse at that time.
There was a Muse poster. You're right. It wasn't the
Yeah.
Muse.
It was it was in it. Well, I think this tour was called Storytelling with Heart.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So we were on tour, traveling to about 30 cities across North America, and San Diego happened to be one of the spots that we stopped in.
Yep.
And Oliver, as you mentioned, your second career is in photography,
Yeah.
and you also do some work with film, with video.
Yep.
And that's kind of what brought you to the workshop. And so we've known each other for greater part of 6 years, and then we crossed paths again at World Domination Summit 2013.
Yep.
Which was probably the year that you won the adventure race, or what is that called when you have
the
scavenger hunt.
Yeah, the scavenger hunt that was known as the unconventional race. The unconventional race. It's basically a set of tasks that range from easy things like buying someone a cup of coffee, to like bigger tasks like writing and reciting a rap to a perfect stranger on the street.
And you also swam across the river, didn't you?
I did not swim across the river. That was one of the tasks.
Uh-huh.
The closest to the most extreme thing I did. So one of them was do something outrageous. So so I kind of went straight back to my hotel room when they announced that the deadline was approaching, and I still had this task. So I stripped down to my underwear and took a flotation device that we used earlier in the week for the world record event, and used that to just cover the underwear. And then I ran nearly naked through the hotel hallway, and that was documented in a picture that is on some website gallery that I will not choose to disclose. So therefore the internet doesn't find it, but it's out there. And so that race taught me I can do a lot more than I thought. And it was a fun surprise to actually win it, because the last task, the top three in that, the last task was told us about an hour or two before we had to go and do it, and it was write a limerick and recite it in front of the whole audience. In that particular year, there was 3,000 people attending the World Domination Summit. And the most nerve-wracking part of it was the winner was chosen by applause. So it was just one of those like, oh man, what if I don't get an applause? The thoughts that you have in it. So but it was a fun thing to kind of finally push myself out of that, like being shy and doing all that. So so that's the year that things changed for me. So
amazing. So for anybody who's not familiar, World Domination Summit, WDS, the event that Oliver is talking about, is a big, I guess you would kind of put into the personal development like space conference held annually here in Portland, Oregon, hosted by Chris Guillebeau, multiple-time New York Times bestselling author, really good person. But I wanted you to kind of share a little bit about that story, because I think that story is reflective of your adventurous spirit, which I think is a big theme I'd like to kind of like circle around today in our conversation for the limited amount of time we have before you fly back to San Diego. And again, like, just to reiterate, Oliver is a really accomplished engineer for the state of California, working specifically in transportation.
Transportation projects.
Transportation projects, and then also an award-winning photographer. A lot of your commercial work is within the wedding space, but then you also do a lot of landscape and architectural photography. If we had an assistant today who was switching between some of your photography, which maybe we'd have to do on a future episode, we'd be able to see Oliver is really good at photography.
Exactly.
And I know that with your career in engineering, which you've now been working for the state of California for how many years?
So officially, it's just a little over 10 years. Unofficially, it's close to 2003 is when I started. So it's 2019. So that will be approximately
More than 10 years.
16 years.
16 years.
16 years. Wow, that was hard.
I'm going to just
math.
go ahead and say it then you're also an accomplished engineer and you're really good at what you do because the state of California wouldn't have you helping design the future and the current, roadway projects that they have by not keeping you there for at least that long.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, it's a dream job I wanted since the 6th grade. So,
and Oliver does not work in LA, so he has nothing to do with any of that LA traffic.
No.
But if he did work there, that stuff would not exist.
I mean, I'm more than happy to answer people's questions on traffic. I feel it's my duty as a public servant and working in the public sector to give the public some at least answers, because I think a lot of the problems with people like not understanding why certain things happen is because they just don't know. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of things that affect why you sit in traffic. And so I always feel it's my responsibility to kind of help answer and guide that. So therefore, the things that they may hear might be erroneous, just to kind of fix that, because there is a lot of things that kind of, affect it. It's as simple as someone pushing the brake pedal randomly, and that can precipitate into a traffic jam that lasts for hours. And it's that thing where you're sitting in traffic and there is no reason when you all of a sudden speed up, you're like, there was no accident, there was no construction. There's a reason for a lot of things. It's basically, to get nerdy on it, it's a fluid dynamics problem. But yeah, so I always feel I geek out on it. It's the thing I enjoy. So yeah, I'm always happy to answer questions about traffic. You can if you find me and you have a question, I will answer it. And if I don't know the answer, I will find someone that has an answer and I'll get back to you.
I sincerely appreciate your honesty too, because as a friend, I have to say that you are very authentic, and your authenticity is a quality that I admire, because you tell it how it is. You don't deceive someone by telling them that something that you don't know, or that you share your opinion frankly. So that's something I appreciate from you. So one other, actually, I want to take this conversation in kind of like a linear way to kind of explain maybe how you kind of came to the career paths that you have now. But I also wanted to kind of share some of the other projects that you're taking on, and maybe we'll just kind of figure out which way we kind of want to approach the conversation from there. But another project that you've taken on for over 3 years now is this photo a day project as well.
Yeah, it's actually closest. It's been 5
years.
Yeah, so 2014.
So since 2014, you have done what?
A daily photo. So basically, I've since January 1st, 2014, taken one photo a day, and I'm up to a
and
day.
Shared that photo, right?
And shared it. It's on my Facebook account. Yeah, so basically, I've taken that photo every day, or taken one photo every day and shared it. And so I'm at, I think, day 1800 at this point. Mm-hmm. So.
Damn. I just thought of other stuff I wanted to talk about with you. So I'm going to just kind of like reintroduce Oliver. So Oliver is a engineer for the state of California, working there for over 16 years. Commercial photographer working in the fields of landscape photography, architectural photography, wedding photography. You've taken on a personal project where you've taken a photo every single day for 5 years and shared that photo without missing a day.
Yep.
You also are, you're a philanthropist. You came here to Oregon on this trip because you're one of the biggest supporters of a college that was recently started by a good friend of ours, Michelle Jones. Mm-hmm. And I know that you mentor as well through the HOBY project, or the HOBY organization.
Yeah.
And you've been involved with the HOBY organization for several years.
Yep.
Oliver, why do you do so many different things, and why do you keep doing them?
Ooh, wow. That. All right.
Yeah, easy question.
Yeah,
just lay that one up.
All right. Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, why do you do so many projects?
I mean, I honestly I do it just for the simple joy of it. Like all the projects that I do, it's because I want to do them, and there's something interesting that I want to see, or something challenging that I want to see if I can do it. So, like for example, the daily photo project, I just wanted to kind of do and see how long I can do it. Like it's easy. I mean, it on paper when you say it, it sounds easy, but then you kind of get into it and you slowly find out it's not as easy. But I wanted to see what I can do and how far I can take and push my limits on that. With volunteering, it's just something that I feel it's my way to say thank you to the community, the world that has allowed me to do the things that I do. Like, it's like the friendships I've been able to make, it's because of volunteering work, or to have the space to try things out. Like, for example, in HOBY, which stands for the Hugh O'Brien Youth, it's a leadership program for sophomores in high school. And my involvement with that is I do a lot of the media stuff for my local site down in Southern California. And so with that, I was able to kind of push myself, because when I started, I was just still starting my career in photography, and just kind of wanted to see what it's like in a real world situation to photograph and produce something. Like I always I had a deadline to meet, so I had to photograph things, and then basically my task at the time was simply to make a slideshow at the end, so therefore we can show it to the parents and as well as the students, or what we call the ambassadors there, mm-hmm. about their whole weekend. And slowly with that organization, I've been able to evolve the media production of it. So it evolved from just taking photos to making a slideshow to now, at least on our site, to make 3 videos at the end of the weekend. And I find joy in doing that, and I like the challenge to see what I can do. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, so what started out as a slideshow now is 3 videos, all done and run by students and volunteers.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a question. For a lot of aspiring, I'm going to use this word to kind of like group people together, but creatives, so people mm-hmm. working in film and photography, it's easy to get caught up in wanting to be creating work where the main motivator for creating that work is not as much personal expression, but oftentimes like monetary gain. So mm-hmm. people wanting to do photography or film projects because they want to make money from it. They want to make their career from it. So you have that, like you have photography and film work that you do, where it's not the primary motivator. Your primary motivator, as I know you, is always like self-expression, but the return is monetary gain. Mm-hmm. more so than I don't know how I would describe it. Something that you do for the sake of doing it for the greater good of like mankind. What do you think about people who are struggling to find like their means of expression through photography and film, mm-hmm. and your approach where you have photography and film that you do in one capacity where you could easily have that be your career, but then mm-hmm. you also have photography and film that you do for the sake of like the betterment of mankind, like youth.
I guess I'll start
like what motivates you to do that?
I mean, I think the big motivation for me is just to kind of share my love for it. To share
for photography or for the group HOBY.
In terms of I'm going to say the photography, because I mean I love giving back to it. It's an organization that's great. It provides leadership skills to sophomores that I think needed, like people at least young people, that they need to realize mm-hmm. they have that potential to be those leaders that they seek to be. So, I support that, but on the photography side, it's just, again, like a way for me to express who I am, but also kind of give back. Because these are opportunities that when I look at it, it's like, I wish I had this when I was younger, mm-hmm. and to have someone to make it approachable, because, when I was learning photography, I'm basically self-taught. And so I didn't really have any mentors that could teach me. And I remember like always like feeling like I was like an imposter, and not having a person to go, hey, what's an f-stop, or what do you mean ISO, like to have that. And so coming from that experience and coming into like a volunteer role or doing the things that I do, you know, if there's someone that has questions, I just want to be that person for them. Like, I don't want them to feel like this is an intimidating thing, because, you know, there's some photographers I met when I was just starting out that just didn't want to answer questions. And they're kind of like, no, kid, you figure this out yourself. But I always felt that was like kind of like bad, and it kind of gave a bad name to it. So my answer to that is like, now to be that mentor role where someone's like, have a question, I don't know what kind of camera or what I'm looking at, and just to kind of help them, because I think that will give a better impression, and I think that's going to give a better impact to both themselves, but as well as, you know, the creative side of it, like the photography side. It'll give them a better feel for it. So I do it more, you know, there is an aspect of it where I do try to make it, you know, monetary, and try to make it feasible, because it's a business, and it is a side.
Costs a lot of money.
Yeah, the equipment and all that. There's the business side of things, but you know, after I take care of the business side of things, there's still some left over that I can do, and that's where I think it's the roles of, you know, us creatives to kind of help bring in the next set of you know, creatives that are working, you know, that are younger than us. And I think that's important, because if you lose that stream of people coming in and they just kind of feel like they're not being respected or they're not being brought into it, it can change things, and, you know, just changes the perception. So I just try to help those that are up and coming to realize they can do it, because they can.
So for the aspiring like photographers and filmmakers out there, I mean, you brought up something that I can definitely relate to. Like, you went to school and you got your degree in engineering. That's what you studied, and you know, you continue to learn, because engineering, just like every other professional field out there, is constantly evolving. There's constantly new technologies, new laws, new material discoveries, like actual materials, like we had talked about before. When I first started filmmaking, this was like in high school, so it was the 90s. Yeah, 90s, early 2000s, something like that. And the internet was just coming up, and I had, you know, like an AOL Instant Messenger account. I had one friend who made a website using GeoCities.
Oh, wow.
This was like next level. He actually had his own webpage, and YouTube didn't exist then, right? But the first stuff that I was ever filming was skiing and skateboarding. Those were the two activities that I still participate in now, just not quite in the same like extreme level as I did like when I was a kid. But there wasn't, like I mentioned, YouTube or all these resources that you could find so easily nowadays around learning the technical aspects, but also then the skill sets that are less, I don't know how to say, I don't want to just say like less technical, but the storytelling, the techniques that are less clear in understanding as something like ISO or aperture, you know, or shutter speed.
Yeah.
But for people who are learning photography and film now, it's a much different like environment, right? So you can learn totally on your own using tutorials online. You can learn from books. You can go to school for it. And then you can also learn in workshop settings and then try to take those skill sets, practice on your own. And then you can also learn in kind of more of like a mentorship way, which is really how I learned what I know now. A lot of it, not all of it, but for, you know, the greater part of 2 years, I was working with a production company where I was working hands-on with really talented professional filmmakers, and I learned by being on set with them and having them share their expertise with me. And I was really fortunate in that instance, because that mentorship model is a little bit more old school. You think like, you know, Benjamin Franklin, he learned how to print newspapers by working as an apprentice.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So like how would you help guide someone who's learning photography or film now in like 2019? Like, what would your suggestion be for, approaching that process?
I definitely support like mentoring, like having that one-on-one conversation and working with someone to me is so much more beneficial than sitting in your house watching a YouTube tutorial or, the other places where you can learn. Like having that human interaction to me is awesome to have, because there's just something about it that kind of helps curate to how you learn and and you can actually just do the thing. So the way I would approach it is, if you're starting out in photography and all that, is, seek out mentors. But when you seek out a mentor, don't just go straight up to them and say, "Hi, can you mentor me?"
I have heard that before.
Yeah,
Many times,
this
actually.
is something that I'm pretty sure this is, the audience is listening is like, yeah, I already know this, but it's definitely true because, when you do get into a, position where you do quality professional work, there is now, there's schedules to look at. And, like I'm guilty of it. It's like, oh yeah, let me ask you, hey, can we go out for a cup of coffee? But there's like a whole thing, like, on the service levels, yeah, it's easy to go for a cup of coffee. But when you're starting a business, when you have a business,
Can I pick your brain?
yeah, it's like, can I pick your brain? It's like, yeah, we could do it.
That's a red flag right there.
Yeah.
Not to say that it won't work.
Yeah,
You can try it.
Yeah, it won't work. And, it's just one of those things because if you are running a business, you have schedules to meet, you have deadlines and projects, but that's not to say that it's not possible. It is definitely possible because if you happen to, get them in the right time, there's a chance they're like, yeah, I have like an hour or two, I can totally do that.
It totally work.
But I think the better approach is, just if you have a mentor in mind, try to just see how you can help them. Like, and it is very, this is not the first time that anyone's hearing this. Is not mind-blowing stuff, but
it might be the first time somebody's
yeah,
hearing
it might be. But it's generally like just wanting to help. So like, for example, when I started out as an engineer, I was an engineering intern. When I was an intern, I never said, "Hey, I want to do this." It was more like my approach to it was, "Okay, I'm your intern. How can I help you?" So you change the dialogue from, "Hey, I'm an intern. You help me," to "I'm your intern. Let me help you and make your job easy." And then therefore, as you go, they get to kind of see who you are and what your thing is. I still tell the story, or at least I'll tell you the story about when I started. One of my first tasks as an engineering intern was to file like, files from all the permit reviews that we did in our department. And I did it for 2 weeks. 2 weeks straight, and that's it. I got the files in the morning, went to the filing room and filed them. And my supervisor at the time was like, yeah, if you want to check out the files, take your time and look at it and, geek out. And so I did that, and I did it for 2 weeks. And then eventually one of my lead workers came up to me and was like, okay, so are you tired of filing? And I was like, no, I'm enjoying it. I'm doing things like, and I'll never forget. He's like, okay, well, we're going to have you stop filing because, okay, you're a good worker. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, usually people within like a day or two is like, okay, I'm tired of filing. Can I do something else? You did it for 2 weeks without saying a thing. And to me, that just now goes to show, like, looking at back now, it's funny to think about it, but it's just like, that was my attitude. It's like, I want to help you. I'm here to help you, not you are here to help me. Like, my intention was never to get a job. I mean, I thought about, there's a potential I can get a job, but that was never the end goals because I was just there. I was, an employee or an assistant that was there to help. So when you approach a mentor, try to figure a way to help them out before asking. You don't want to ask before you give, in a sense. So it sounds simple, but it can be complicated. So to anyone that's aspiring, just try to figure out. It's like, dude, I am more than happy to like sweep a floor on a production. Just say, can I just be the person that like picks up after you? Like just something, remedial. And then I think because what that does, it gives you access, right? And through that access, you can observe. And then later on, when the opportunity presents itself, you can go, so when I was sweeping the floors, I remember you were doing this. Can I ask you why you did it? So you have that access, and that's usually how it starts, and that's how you can kind of get your way in.
Man, I love this conversation
Yeah.
because there's so many ways that we could just go off on a tangent and we could talk
We've
for
done.
hours about just that one thing. And I'm gonna quote my good friend Kevin Carroll: "How you do the little things is how you do all things." Right. And so what you were just saying, I couldn't help but think, like you said, something as simple as filing or even sweeping the floors, and it is absolutely, in my mind and my personal experience, a reflection of how other tasks are then handled. If you do a phenomenal job sweeping the floor,
Hmm.
it means a lot of things. It means you're really attentive to detail,
Hmm.
right? Like you really also care about presentation
Yeah.
and not complaining.
Hmm.
Oh my God. Like that, not complaining will take you so far in life. It will take you so far on a
Absolutely.
commercial video or photo set. Like you will not believe, because it's the reality of working as a photographer or filmmaker. There's going to be lots of instances where you're maybe going to have to stand somewhere for a long time. You're maybe going to be on your feet for a while. Maybe you're not going to get your coffee totally warm. Maybe it sat out for an hour before you got a chance to drink it.
Hmm.
Maybe lunch came late. But that's just the way it is. That's the way that like things can happen.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the other point I wanted to bring up, because I couldn't agree more with mentality around how can I help, as a mentality that is kind of just primed for growth for someone just starting out. Taking it like another step further, not how can I help, but paying attention enough to see a place where you can help and asking, hey, I saw that when I was filing the catalog system, it was slightly hard to read. And I saw we have a label maker.
Hmm.
Like, would it be helpful if I redid the labels? It shouldn't take maybe more than an hour, but I think it will help to speed up accessing files in the future,
Yeah.
and it's just, again, reflective of so much. Like, yeah, like,
Yeah, I mean, if I can interrupt you on that, yeah, it's also there's yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because there's the ask of how can I help,
mhm,
but what's equally better is if you see, like you just mentioned, if you see something and you have a solution already,
mhm,
it just shows a lot more because now you're just like, oh, okay, this person is now thinking ahead and is like, okay, well, let's see what goes on, and yeah, because again, it's kind of like someone going, can I have some of your time? But it's equally as difficult for the person to be asked the question, how can I help? Because sometimes they're busy enough too and they don't know. But if you present something
mhm,
like, how can I help? Or it's like, hey, I've noticed this and this is what I think would work.
mhm.
Chances are that person's going to be like, that's actually a great idea. If you can, yeah, execute it and then do it and then do it with a smile. And that will elevate you even more and a lot quicker to where you want. It's again, yeah, I love. It's all about that attitude on how you can help and what the solutions you present.
Yeah, gratitude is the attitude. I
Yeah.
think that's a Tony Robbins quote. I love that one too. I love my one-liners. But we talked a little bit about mentorship, right, as
Mm-hmm.
a way for aspiring photographers or filmmakers, or we're going to call them creatives, to learn and to move forward. Um, with the resources that are available online, there's like another resource that recently just like popped up to my attention. It's a podcast. It's not my own podcast, but it happens to be your podcast. Oliver, another project that you started recently was the Better Photographer Show.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about why you decided to start your own podcast around photography.
Yeah. So I started a new podcast with photography, all designed to kind of help photographers because, like, when I was learning about it, I had to learn everything on my own, and so I've been able again to kind of get to where I am today because I've done it, and so I'm at that point where a lot of friends ask me about certain questions, and I get that same question over and over again. And so one idea I had way back when was, why don't I just record what knowledge I have? So therefore, if I do get busy and I have no time to give to someone to explain something, I can refer them to a podcast and say, oh, you want to learn about ISO, listen to episode 6, or, to kind of have that frame of reference. But it's all because, again, this is something to give back, because, the community helped me get to where I am. So this is my way to kind of always just give back. So I started this podcast just to give back to that community, and also to kind of bring up and talk about different subject matter that may not be things that are talked about in the photography realm. So, like, for example, I have an episode talking about health and photography on the podcast, and it's something that I felt is we don't really talk about it, especially as creatives. Like, I mean, there's some implications with health associated with it. I'm not saying that you have to like be ripped or have a 6-pack, but you should at least have the stamina and the endurance to kind of do it. Because like as a wedding photographer, before I started, I didn't realize I was going to be on my feet 10, 12 hours, and that can take a lot of you if you're not ready for it. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about topics that are related to things that we see on an everyday, like rules and being respectful to each other as photographers. And
so we I know one of the episodes, I'm sorry to interject, that I listened to was about geotagging, which is like a big conversation recently in the past like year or so, or beyond that, with the popularity of Instagram, and specifically how people tag locations where they take their photos, and then other people will use those photos and photo tags, location, GPS coordinates to go to that site. So I'm sorry to interject.
Oh no, I mean, so it's to bring up those kind of topics and kind of have discussion. Like I'm not, when on the podcast, I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong. I rather have a discussion about it. And so so I just started this project to kind of bring light to some things, but also to kind of share my knowledge and give back. So so it's currently I'm working on it daily, because now that it's a new project, there's a new workflow that I have to integrate into my schedule, my creative schedule, because there's a day job, and then there's like the business aspect. So podcasting right now is not making money, but it's more like a side passion project on top of everything I do.
Another way of you giving back. It's like a big theme of Oliver Asis. And what I was just thinking about the podcast was it's just another reflection of like, you wanting to help improve somebody else's experience or somebody else's process, because you also were I forget the exact title, but with the Photographers Association in San Diego. What were you involved with there? So
I'm a member of the Professional Photographers of San Diego County, which is the PPA, the Professional Photographers of America, San Diego affiliate, as well as the PPC, which is the Professional Photographers of California. So it's a local affiliate. So at a certain point in my photography career, I thought it would be great to join a professional org. And, there's a lot of them, like there's PPA, ASMP, APA. These are all professional photography orgs. And I thought it was good in my development career to kind of learn best practices, but also kind of see what working full-time photographers are doing, and kind of see that and kind of learn from it. So I got recruited to join the board. I was part of a volunteer group, or I was a volunteer coordinator for another like local meetup in San Diego at the time, and one of the board members from PPSDC recruited me, and to be their secretary. So I took meeting minute notes for a year, and then eventually learned how that organization runs, and eventually worked up to become the president of the organization. I think at the time I became president. I was the youngest president they ever had. And so I basically kind of went to pasture after being chairman of the board.
Why would someone, because I know there's a professional filmmakers association too here in Portland. Why would someone decide to join an organization like that?
I think someone should consider joining these professional organizations, because at least the national level, they do a lot of like advocacy for professional photographers. So like copyrights, like they give a lot of education aspects, as a photographer, as a creative, there's copyright, and some people don't really know how to manage that, and they provide you that detail, and then they do like the hard work to do it and get it up to like a congressional level. But on more like a personal, like person thing, the reason why I want to join, I mean, it's been said, yeah, networking. That's, if you're working, you build a good network of photographers that are working out there. And, if you get a gig, you can pass it off to them if you don't have it, or they will pass off, a job to you. You also learn professional development. They also have some competition. Some organizations have competition, like PPSDC has what we call an image competition, and it's a nice, friendly competition amongst your fellow photographers. But it also allows you to build, a good skill set, a way to look at photos, also a thick skin when you get critical.
Judged.
Yeah, when you get judged
Publicly too.
Publicly, and you won't know who it is, but that is your photo, and those are the comments that are coming from it. And you build that thick skin because, as a creative, it's hard for us to kind of get criticism sometimes. So, so that's like several aspects to want to join a professional org. And, there's also, I guess, in a sense, there's a marketing aspect of it, because you can, as photographers, we don't really have like a license. Like as an engineer, I can get a professional engineering license, but as photographers or creative, there's like no, I would say, like an accreditation to it. Yeah. Like I'm going to say it's almost kind of like the Wild West. Like, how do you classify yourself as a professional photographer? But at least with PPA, you can get, a sort of like certification on it. And basically when you get the certification, it's basically a sign and a symbol that you do consistent, work, and you have good business practices. And it's almost like, it's like a stamp of approval from the Better Business Bureau.
Totally.
So
yeah, because I know with filmmaking, there's the Filmmakers Association. I don't know if it's like of America, but ACS, like you'll see that accreditation oftentimes, like American Cinematographer Society, I think. And then you can be be in various unions for various roles. So if you're an editor or a producer or a director, among, multitude of other skills or roles that you can develop an accreditation for, to then work on very large sets that only allow accredited, skilled team members. Yeah. So if you're ever wanting to work in like a giant Hollywood blockbuster, you can almost guarantee that for those high level, high skilled positions, you have to first attain one of those accreditations. And I know for those accreditations, there's various requirements that they have beyond association fees, including approved hours on sets under the, I think, almost like apprenticeship model. So working underneath someone who has that accreditation, so that way they can ensure that you do in fact have a high level of understanding in those specific technical skill sets. So it's one approach for sure. Yeah. And
I think that those kind of rules are more established for like video and filmmaking, whereas in a photographer sense, we don't really have that. And so this is just kind of one way, at least at the current moment, to kind of separate yourself from the pack of photographers out there. So
I know that we both did a small amount of photography for a project that's coming out. I think we could talk about it, but I guess we're just going to talk about it. But I think you have some photography that's going to be in a book published coming up with Chris Gilba.
Possibly.
Can we say that? It's possible.
It's possible.
I haven't got an advanced copy, but
I don't know, but yeah, you get on random projects just by networking and getting to meet people.
Yeah.
So,
it's a really interesting thing, that how people oftentimes ask, oh man, like, how can I get more work? How do you get your clients? Like, how do you answer that question?
Honestly, it's just networking, getting to know people. And honest to goodness, it comes from the most random places, like a friendship that you meet and you're just like, yeah, I think I can do that. Or, again, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like the genuine, hey, I see this thing and I think this might work for you. And you just generally do that. Or you just go in with an intention of good intentions, and that returns. I mean, it's karma in a sense. So honest to goodness, it's just be nice to people, and people will be nice back to you. It's simple. Don't talk bad about people. Yes, I know we all want to talk bad about people sometimes, but just be nice. I think this day and age, we need a little bit more kindness in the world and more understanding. So just kind of have that. But yeah, you get projects that you're just like, I never thought I would photograph it, but sure, you just take that challenge. And sometimes you will get approached with projects that sound interesting and may not turn interesting, but you have that experience with it. So
yeah. There's always something. I've never come away from a project where I haven't learned something. And if I have ever felt like I haven't learned something, it's because I missed what I learned. I didn't maybe do a thorough enough of a post-project analysis to understand something that didn't quite go as expected, or I didn't take away, whether it's as simple as like learning how to wrap a cable, which is a skill that I learned from our mutual friend, Wes Wages. He was the first person to ever show me how to wrap over under. And
nice.
It's crazy because that skill set I have since taught to other people who have taught it to other people. So the ripple effect from Mr. Wes Wages, I see you out there, bro, maybe you're watching, has gone so far. And the story of how Wes learned to wrap over under, I'm not gonna, I'll just say it. He told me he took a gig working as a production assistant on a job that was with ESPN. It's a job that he was well overqualified for at the time. He runs a super successful creative studio out of Florence, Alabama, with his wife, Tara Wages. Congrats on your 4th kid. You guys are amazing. And that was one of the things that he took away from that project with ESPN, where he was working as an assistant and came away learning how to wrap over under, who's since helped teach to hundreds of people through that one experience.
Yeah, absolutely. The skill sets you learn on some jobs are invaluable. Anything so like kind of just adding to that, like one skill set I learned on the job was like, how do you, like when you're photographing and you use multiple memory cards, how do you kind of distinguish what are used cards and what are own cards? And it's as simple as like just flip it over. And you're like, I never thought about it.
Exactly. So. If you've never thought about it and you see somebody do it, then you're like, oh, that totally makes sense. But now, like, I know it and I can show it to someone else and it will make sense to them too.
Exactly.
So. Oliver, photography, we kind of been digging into that. And I want to know philanthropy. Let's go there, because that's part of the reason. That is actually like the main reason why you came up to Portland for this trip. Maybe you could touch upon a little bit about what your role is with the Wayfinding Academy, and then I don't know, I heard about a pizzeria out in San Diego called Tribute Pizza that you're also involved in. What's going on with your life where you're giving for the sake of just giving?
So this particular weekend I came up here to attend the Wayfinding Academy's 3rd annual Live Your Dreams party, which is their fundraising party to help fund the Wayfinding Academy. And so my involvement with the Wayfinding Academy is I am what you call a luminary.
And maybe you could give a little primer too on like what the Wayfinding Academy is.
So being a luminary for the Wayfinding Academy, and for those that don't know what the Wayfinding Academy is, it is, the way I describe it, it's an alternative kind of college. So they flipped the traditional model of college. Instead, in the traditional sense, you going in as a freshman have to kind of choose a major, and then you work towards graduating in that major. Well, what Wayfinding does, they flip it. So instead of having the students choose a major, they get to know the students, like what their passions are, what drives them. And when they finish the Wayfinding Academy, they'll at least have a set of like life skills that they can use to either start a business or do something, and they are more well prepared to take on the roles outside of an education system, outside of college. And they also do have the options to take those units and transfer it to a 4-year institution if they wish. I mean, it's a fully accredited college here in Portland, Oregon. It's a 2-year program. They graduate with an associate's degree. And yeah, I just truly believe in their model of college. Like, I think a lot of us can attest going through school. Sometimes we don't know what we want to do, or the thing that we're doing, we're not really feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And to have a model where you get to understand who you are and what drives you, and to get those opportunities, it's great. It's invaluable. Like, I've been lucky that I knew what I wanted to do. I mean, I got the dream job that I wanted since I was in 6th grade.
To be an engineer.
Yeah, being an engineer. So I already knew that. But there are a lot of people that don't really know what they want to do. And to kind of have a better understanding of themselves and what drives provides that platform. And wayfinding does that. So it's something I just truly believe, and I just want to support and see it succeed. So I learned about it at the World Domination Summit a couple of years ago. I think it was 2015 or 14.
Mm-hmm. Michelle Jones, the founder of Wayfinding Academy, gave a presentation.
Yeah, and so it was a concept that I was like, oh, I love this concept. And so fast forward a couple of years after they established and started opening up, they have a program where if you wanted to support them, they have this program called the Luminary Program. Basically what it is you are a donor to the Wayfinding Academy, and you donate about 1% of your overall salary, or you just give a monthly contribution to it. And so I give some of my salary to them on a monthly basis and continue to do so. So I've been a luminary for wayfinding since 2016. And so I just continue to support them and wanted to do that. So if you're interested, I would say check out wayfindingacademy.org.
And yesterday, they had their annual fundraiser.
Yep.
Here in town.
Yeah.
So what brought you up? But
yeah.
Oliver, we'll talk about tribute maybe later. But Oliver, so you said that when you were in 6th grade, you knew what you wanted to do with your career. You knew what your dream job was.
Yeah.
How did you know?
So I was your typical kid that
This is in California?
No, I grew up kind of around the Pacific. My dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot. But the thing that I knew what I wanted to do was this consistent theme of transportation. So growing up, I loved Matchbox and Hot Wheels, and that's the thing I got. And for as long as I can remember, like, freeways and roads fascinated me, especially interchanges. I loved looking at them. Freeway signs, traffic signs, those things fascinate me. So I'm like, okay, how do you get that job? What do you do that job? And so we finally, in 6th grade, 4th grade, we moved to San Diego. And then when I was in 6th grade, we passed near my current work location. And I asked my dad, hey, what's the California Department of Transportation? What do they do? And he's like, they're the ones that build the freeways. And I was like, oh, wait, those signs and those interchanges, yeah, that's the one. I'm like, all right, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. And if I look back at all the things, it's like, if you look at all my sketches and my drawings, it's always been cars and transportation. I still play some city building games to this day, so I nerd out on it. So it's always been part of my dialogue and what kind of makes me me. So for me, I just took those signs, obvious signs, I think transportation is the thing I want to work on, So I kind of, knowing that, I took my life approach to get there. It took a lot of math and science skills because that's what you need in engineering. And, so I was lucky that I knew.
But you didn't just know, you actually followed through and kept going for it, because it's not easy to be just become an engineer.
No.
Right? Math and science don't come naturally to a lot of people. It's skill sets that, were you good at math and science in school? Were those subjects that came easily to you?
Yeah, those were subjects that were easy to me. I enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed the structure and the...
Were they actually easy, or you enjoyed the challenge of them and the enjoyment was easy?
For the most part, they were easy for me.
Mm-hmm.
There were definitely difficult subjects that I was not the best at. I can remember particularly Calculus 2 was not my strong suit, but I took it on and I just kept at it because I knew at the end of this path, and at least on this particular journey, that it would lead to what I wanted to do. Like, these were, I would say, the gatekeepers that kind of would open if I continued, and it was that drive to do it. So it was like I needed to, I felt compelled to complete it so I can get to that.
So then you kept with it. You had an internship that then turned into the position that has evolved to the position that you hold now.
Yeah.
Where did photography come in? Like, how were you an engineer or an engineering intern? I don't know when it exactly came to you that you needed also photography as a means of expression. How did you go from being an engineer or following the engineering path to photography?
So photography was also kind of like in the background growing up. Like, my dad was a photographer. He was an amateur photographer. So we always had photos around. And I still remember being a kid, I would always look through the family photos and I'd constantly be looking at them. And also, my parents can attest to this, that when I want to buy books, I didn't buy the books because of the articles in it. I literally bought the books because of the pictures in it. And that was the thing. Like, my parents would buy me books. They're like, "Are you going to read this?" And I would say, "Yeah." But in reality, it was because there was pretty pictures in it. And so, I would take my dad's camera and take it. And, when you're young and it's filmed, back then it was filmed, there's no digital. And you take pictures and you have no idea what you're doing. And you have like 24 or 36 exposures. And your parents are like, "What are you taking pictures of?" And that we're spending money on. So it kind of just went away for a little bit because it's just not. But so in lieu of taking a photography, I did a lot of sketching and drawing because I wanted to create my own photos. And so fast forward to college, I basically got tired of drawing up my lab assignments. And there was this thing called Windows Word that you can insert photos.
Yeah.
And so, from my birthday one year, I asked for a point and shoot digital camera, Canon S50, 5 megapixels, $800 for my birthday. And I was like, "Yeah, I want this. This is a what thing." So I started taking pictures of my lab, like my lab setups, and put that in my report. And then I was like, I can do better.
So this is in high school now?
This was in college.
Oh, in college.
Yeah, so I didn't do any photography from basically when I was like in elementary school all the way until college. But it was always in the back of my head. Like, I would pick up a camera here and there, but it was never taken seriously. But it was in college where it came about, where it actually started, where a seed took root and blossomed into the photography that we see today.
And with the photography, because that's the other component. Like, your photography is across. Is it correct to say like several mediums? Okay, so like I mentioned, landscape, architecture, and then people, right? With wedding, where a lot of your commercial work is. How do you learn, and like where did you learn from for those various disciplines? Like, is there a photographer that you really dug into and really tried to find all their materials and all their educational work for landscape? And then was there another photographer for wedding? And then was there another photographer for architecture? How did you learn to do those three disciplines?
So there was no particular photographer for any particular sets of styles of photography, but the photographers that till this day that I still look up to and kind of help remind me and motivate me. Well, the first one is Chase Jarvis. He was one of the first photographers that I'm just like, all right, he just wanted to teach.
Yeah.
And kind of show and share what was going on.
Yeah, Chase is good people.
Yeah, and so I was like, I was like, all right, I need to find out and learn about what he does and all that stuff. And so I think it's through that I learned through experimentation, just trying things out. Like, watching his early videos and stuff, you just kind of saw like he was like an adventure sports photographer, but he also kind of dabbled and did other things as well. And so I was like, okay, you can try all the things. You don't have to just, do one thing. And so, so Chase was there, but then like there was also like the art aspect of it. Like it wasn't just pictures. And so for the art aspect of photography, for me, was Vincent Laforet. Like, and just his work, like I think I still remember seeing one of his like tilt shift photos where he made a thing, I think it was about commuting, and he made it look like a miniature. And I thought, that's freaking cool. And to kind of have that is like, you can do multiple things, and also kind of learning what he did. We went from a photojournalism background, or he did that. I think he worked for the New York Times, or he worked for some newspaper.
Yeah, projects in there.
Yeah, and so so there's like this art aspect of it, and so but what I took away from them is like, you just have to tell your own dialogue, but also experiment and try things. And so it was with that spirit that I was like, okay, let me try taking pictures of people, because at the time it was like, you started hearing it early on, like you can't really make a full career of it, or you could, but you had to learn it. And so at the time it was like, weddings seemed to be the place to make the money. And so I had to kind of learn how to do the wedding aspect, but I kind of looked at it as like, all right, this is how I would like my wedding photos to look. So I tried it out. And if you listen to the Side Hustle School by Chris Gillibo, you can hear
Side
this
Hustle podcast.
Yeah, and you can hear the story of how I started my wedding photography business. I think it's episode 9. It's called The Craigslist Photographer.
Yeah, that's a great episode.
And so you can hear that, and basically it was just, I just tried it. I just tried it and experimented. And it was that iteration of just putting things out there. So with the weddings, it was just trying things out. With the commercial work, the architecture, and the landscape, again, it was just trying it out. Like, because I always try to blend everything together. Like, to me, weddings, it's all about story, and to kind of to incorporate people's story into it. Same thing with architecture and landscape. There's a story behind it, like the story behind a building. There's a reason why I photograph a building in a certain way, to kind of show a feature of it. And there's that, kind of dialogue with it. But it's literally just through experimentation and getting inspired by fellow photographers and learning about like their like what inspires them or their workflow. It was never always about the technical stuff. It was always about learning their thought process for me. And that's how it is, and just trying things out. So
yeah, with the I love so many things about what you just explained, because Chase Jarvis, he's definitely someone I've always looked up to for many reasons, but he was someone who early on, his work I came across. Same with, I was mentioning to you earlier, like Philip Bloom, he had a series on Vimeo Video School. And Chase, I know I've had the fortune of actually like meeting him a couple times. I went to his studio when he had actually also like his own live podcast. This was earlier on now, like 6-7 years ago. And he had a special guest surprise performance, and that happened to be at that time Macklemore.
Yeah,
which was really crazy, because it was like literally a dozen people at his studio in Seattle, which I think now is the Creative Live studio. And he had his Creative Live, or his Chase Jarvis live show. And then at the end of the show, he's like, all right, and everybody, thanks so much for coming and hanging out today. And got a special surprise guest, a good friend of mine, Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. And people just went absolutely nuts. And it was funny because Chase didn't announce who the surprise musical guest was, but he had a little bit of a contest where he was like, hey, I'm thinking about bringing in a studio audience for the show, and I have a guest performer. I'm not going to say who it is, but if you guys want to guess who it is, like, write it in the comments and we'll select like people to come up. And I had remembered Chase had another experiment, which I love. I want to talk about experiments that he did in the 2000s, early 2000s now. It was a project called Songs for Eating and Drinking, where he invited his friends and like local musical talent that he knew in Seattle, because that's where I think Macklemore and Ryan Lewis are from, for a dinner with a performance. And he knew Macklemore before Macklemore like blew up. So it was really funny. But experiments, I love what you said about experiments, that you didn't see one medium and say, I'm only going to take pictures at weddings. I'm only a wedding photographer. I'm only a landscape photographer. I'm only this type of creative, because that's the other thing about you and also Chase and Vincent LaFerre. They don't do just photography. They don't do just film. And they don't do just photography or film.
Yeah.
They're experimenting across all lots of mediums. Where do you see that? Where do you see the value in experimenting?
Oh, experimentation is absolutely valuable, because that's the place where your ideas can be either you blossom it or you just kill it right there. Like, everyone has, you ask, okay, what if? Well, by experimenting, you answer that what if question. And so by doing it, that's where you get your, all the workflow issues out. That's where you get your creative juices flowing. I mean, it's basically, I would say it's the core of being a creative. Like, the things that we create is because we tried something and we learned something from a mistake, or we learned something from the success of it. But it's through experimentation that you yourself as a creative grow. It's how you tell your story. It is how you make yourself unique from everyone else by experimenting. Like, you can try multiple things, and if you do something cool, that is you, and you get to known for a particular thing.
What's an experiment that went not totally in line with your expectations and then has become something else that you still are involved in today?
That's a good one. I would say like a daily photo project. It started out as an experimentation. It was an experimentation to see how long I could be consistent with doing something. And through that process, I learned that, one, I'm good at routine. I can, once I establish a good workflow, I continually doing it. But I also learned that by doing it, I now put it as part of my daily, like ritual. It's like something I had to do. And so I'm always touching the creative side of myself, even though I'm working and all that stuff. And, so like the daily photo project for me, it's just, that started out as an experimentation that is continuing and blossoming. So
the other experiment that I know that you've continued with too is your inspirational quote that you share. What day is that on? Remind me.
So if you follow me on Instagram, handles Oliver_Asis. That's _ASIS. So Monday through Friday at approximately like 7:30 in the morning Pacific Standard Time, I give you a thought of the day. And it's only Monday through Friday. And if you watch it long enough, you'll realize where I take it, which is I'm waiting for my car to warm up before I go to work. And basically that just started out because, between the World Domination Summit and doing HOBY, there's a lot of positivity. Like World Domination Summit and HOBY kind of give me life through the midway point through the year, because they're usually around June and July. And it's through this midway point that, you start going, okay, because in January, you're like, okay, it's a new year. I have all this things I want to do. And, June and July are like the slump, and you're like, oh, but I need it. So HOBY and the World Domination Summit provide this extra positivity and gets me through the rest of the year. And so I just wanted to continue those things. So I don't honestly remember when it started, because I've just been doing it. But yes, so a couple years ago via Snapchat. So here's the thing too. It's recorded on Snapchat and then I share it on my Instagram. So it started as a Snapchat project, not an Instagram project. And so Monday through Friday, I give you a thought of the day. And these thoughts of the days are usually based on things I see, things I'm feeling, so it's always random. And my challenge with it is I'm trying not to repeat anything. I mean, I'm pretty sure I repeated a few of them, but so that thought of the day project again was just an experiment to go, all right, let me share some positivity to start off everyone's day. Sorry if you're on the East Coast, you get it a little bit later, but it's a great, to me, it's just a great way to start off a day. Start off with a positive note. So therefore you set your intention and, you just feel better about yourself.
I agree. And I don't know if I ever talked to you about this, but part of the reason I decided to start this project or this experiment, because that is really what I see it as, this video podcast is totally an experiment in so many different ways. Maybe an experiment and also seeing how I can maximize what a one-man band means. Like I'm trying to do very likely too many things, but I'm learning a lot. But one of the things that I took away from the thought of the day, because when you originally talked to me about it, we were discussing the other major theme that I think all people who work as photographers or filmmakers experience, which is this feeling of my personal experience, discomfort in front of the camera, and then also how it's related to why we oftentimes find ourselves behind the camera. It's this weird thing. It's this very strange feeling. Of course, it's changing now because I think people who are growing up in this age where almost everyone has a device in their pocket that at all times has a camera that they can look at and then look through. It's different, but it's some strange feeling, some vulnerability that I have felt being, on this side of the lens. And when we were talking about the Thought of the Day project, you had also talked about how you had experimented once with like vlogging, and I had also tried it a little bit. I don't even know if I ever actually shared. I do know I never shared actually a lot of the vlog experiments that I tried, but part of the reason I decided to do this experiment was to put myself in front of the camera. We've got 3 cameras here actually, like 1, 2, 3. You can't see them, but you motivated me to do this project, right? Because I knew that there was a fear of mine in switching the role from being behind the camera as a director, as a filmer, and being in front of it. And I've learned so much from this project already. This is only episode 5. I said I'm going to do at least episodes 6, up to 6 episodes, and it'll likely keep going past that. But I definitely have a greater understanding of the shift in feeling that I now have with being on both sides of the camera, which is interesting because I didn't expect it as much. So bring it back to the original question where I was talking to you about the value of experiments and why you keep doing them. I couldn't agree more, and I'm living it now. Yeah. Right. And we're also taking it to the next level because we're deciding to share this conversation live, which is like another strange twist in the world of video and photography, how easy it is now to be live.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely intimidating thinking that this is showing live, because when you record like a vlog, you can edit later, and you can take out the yeahs, the awkward position, the facial expressions, and all that stuff. But doing this live, it definitely puts you in a vulnerable position. Like, what did I say? Did I say something wrong? But again, it just kind of shows a little bit more of who you are. Yeah. And I think in an age where, not to knock on Instagram, but to show what it really is like,
well, Instagram Live too.
Yeah, there's Instagram Live.
It's been really, I think, gaining a lot of momentum.
Yeah, just to kind of show a little bit more, more of what actually goes on, because a lot of our Instagram feeds and the stuff that we share on social media, it's curated, and you don't see the struggles that we as creatives sometimes go through. There are days where you just take a deep breath and I don't know if I can continue doing this. There's definitely those struggles, and we do, creatives are getting better at talking about it, but just it's one aspect to show what it is. And being in front of the camera is definitely different. Similar to you, I've gotten comfortable being in front of the camera, because for many years I didn't like it, because just you have that conversation in your head, or the story that you tell yourself. You're like, oh, you're not ready to be in front of the camera. Who are you, kind of thing.
It's an interesting thing too, because like what you were talking about with like one of the episodes for the Better Photographer show around health and being a photographer. It's interesting because one of the shifts that I've noticed as well is, you know, we want to feel good about how we look and feel, and how we look on camera is of course very external, right? Or very surface, I should say. Maybe that's a little bit more correct, but it's something that has also motivated me to ensure that I try to live a healthier lifestyle and participate in activities that make me look better. Hopefully, you know, like whether it's eating healthier food or trying to do strength and conditioning training, or, you know, stretching my back so I don't have as much of a rounded shoulder,
exactly.
right? Because spending a lot of time in front of the computer behind the camera, we've got this protracted position with our shoulders, which, you know, I try to balance out with some back bends or from hanging from a rock climbing wall or something along those lines. So it's interesting because yes, that's again a superficial pursuit in a way, but it has results that are, I think, transcendent of just the appearance.
Yeah.
Which is I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, I think doing those like activities, like the health activities, like, you know, rock climbing, running, biking, it gives you also, I think, like a break from being in front and behind a camera and a computer.
I don't bring my phone to the gym. It's weird.
You know, it's funny that we talk about like being disconnected, like those hours, that 1 or 2 hours that we're doing those things, you're not on the phone most of the time.
I should correct myself, because I do bring my phone to the gym sometimes.
Yeah.
I use the phone actually, and the camera at the gym as a research tool, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then also a vanity tool, because, you know, sometimes you do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But yeah, like watching when you post these, yeah, no, I can totally see the research aspect. Like it's great to like see your friends do something that they've been talking about and go, okay, I didn't do well on this one, but here's one I did. And so you have that. And it also provides that accountability aspect of it. It's like, you know, like if you see my daily pictures of when I'm in the gym, I show you how many miles I ran and all that stuff. So, you know, it's that accountability aspect of it. Yeah. But yeah, it's, you know,
you haven't been taking pictures of somebody else's bicycle or treadmill, have you?
No. Yeah, no. There's ways to check to make sure I do it.
Oh man, because like that's another thing that's been a big deal. Not a big deal, but it's just like a funny thing with the internet and with photography and the fitness industry, is people using fake weights that are in appearance heavy, you know, 45 pounds or 20 kg or whatever, but in reality they're actually much lighter. It's
interesting.
Really it is what it is, you know.
It is what it is, but I think the more important aspect is like you generally have, like any creative pursuit, especially with health, you have to want to do it.
Yeah. So like, I think that you oh man, you're right on the ball there with how to use the phone in the gym in I think like kind of a healthier way than a lot of the vanity pictures that people are taking in the mirror, because you're using it, and I could go through your feed and see all the pictures that you've taken of your treadmill or of the bike, and I could see like, oh, Oliver did 25 miles this week.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where I love. I think that that's a really important like thing for people to think about. Like, yeah, take your phone to the gym if you want. Don't get fucking distracted on texting people or going on Instagram, and think of it as a research tool.
Yeah, research tool or a way to disconnect and relax.
Yeah.
Just like, or yeah, with the phone, use it as
play some music.
Yeah, play some. Use it a way to distract yourself. So play some music. Like I have a workout list that I play, but yeah, it's just like disconnect from that phone for those 1 or 2 hours, and you'll find that, you know, you get the benefit of the exercise. Yeah. But then you also get the mental break from having technology constantly attached to you.
Yeah. So I had online coaching with like a fitness program that I was participating in last year, and that was one of the hardest one of the hardest components about it was because the program was done online, they always wanted video as a way to track my progress and evaluate my performance with various moves that I was, aspiring towards. And it required me having the phone in the gym, setting up a little tripod and recording myself. And when I really embodied the understanding that this is a research tool and saw the results of myself reviewing video from, maybe a hand balancing session, seeing where my technique was not correct, and then using that video for reference to make those corrections, it was for sure 100% a huge reason why I was able to improve in various techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
but then I also had content for Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great because, in my health weight loss journey, it was never a weight loss journey, but my journey into getting my health back, like photo and more photo helped me, because now I can look back to where I started to where I am now. It's a huge difference. From January 2017 to, February 2019.
Yeah,
complete
and it's not
difference.
Gonna stop.
Yeah, it's not going to stop.
It
hasn't. Yeah, so.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you use it as a tool to help keep progress and keep yourself accountable, sure, good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think maybe we'll use that as like a what do you call it? A slate, or what is that at the end of
a wrap up?
A wrap up, yeah, because it's a great actionable piece of advice that anyone who maybe has stayed with us today can take and chew on. A little something to use for the betterment of your well-being. Oliver, for anybody who's not yet connected with you, where can people find you on the internet and beyond?
So there are multiple places you can find me on the internet. I'm frequently on Instagram, so you can follow my landscape photography at Oliver_Asis. So that is spelled OLIVER_ASIS. And if you're interested, you can check my more personal Instagram account, where I post bow ties, ties, and food photos. And you can find that Instagram handle at OLASIS. And eventually, you can also follow the podcast, The Better Photographer Show, at The Better Photographer Show on Instagram as well. So those are the three places where I hang out a lot. But I'm always reachable on Twitter, also at OLASIS. And I would love to chat with anyone that was listening today. If you have any further questions, it could be about photography, health, traffic, engineering. I will answer your questions. And it's just, I enjoy talking, because it is social media. So let's be social and talk. Yeah.
Excellent. And if anybody happens to be coming by Portland, Oregon in the summer of 2019, Oliver will 100% be at World Domination Summit if you guys want to meet in person.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be hosting a ice cream meetup.
Possibly. Yeah. Where you can possibly meet the love of your life and start a family.
Because that happened. Oh, man.
That's a true story.
We're going to have to save that for episode 2. Or
the continuation.
Yes, the continuation of how Oliver helped 2 people get married and have a baby. Amazing times. Oliver, thank you so much, brother.
Absolutely.
Excellent. I'm going to go turn off the live stream. Appreciate you, people.
Laters.